Well, good morning, good evening, hello everyone, wherever you are in the world today. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on the role of sustainability in the current travel climate. We've got some great speakers lined up for this event today, and I'll be introducing them to you in just 1 minute. A couple of quick housekeeping points before we kick off properly. This webinar will be recorded and will be available for viewing on the website of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance shortly. For all of you joining in today, please stay in listen-only mode, but do take a look at the chat feature so you can communicate with all of the attendees and speakers. You'll find that chat box on the right-hand side of the presentation screen in the features section. And please also do send us your questions and answers for the Q&A section we'll be having at the end of the webinar. Again, you'll find a Q&A button or icon on the right-hand side in the features section as well. Now, both Booking.com and the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance are committed to responsible hospitality and working alongside the travel industry to make sure our planet and its communities can thrive now and into the future. And this is why Booking.com and the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance have come together to create a webinar series to share practical knowledge and advice and good practice from across the sector on key sustainability issues. And in this first webinar today, we're focusing on what sustainability means for our industry in this current travel climate. So I'd like to kick off by thanking Booking.com and the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance for bringing us all together, for kicking off this series and for convening a very knowledgeable panel of speakers. But thank you also in particular to you, our audience, whether you're Australia, New Zealand or anywhere else. These are clearly extraordinarily difficult times for the industry. And so our goal in this session is to share as much practical knowledge, insights, information as possible that you can then apply within your business. So let me quickly introduce the speakers to you. My name is Stephen Farrant. I'm an independent sustainability consultant, and among other things, I'm also on the trustee board of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. I'll be moderating the session today. Alongside me, we have Virginia Fernandez-Trapper, who is Programme Officer at the UN World Tourism Organization. We'll be joined also by Thomas Laughlin, who is Sustainable Supply Lead at Booking.com, by Eric Ricorte, founder of Greenview, by Inge Hebrechts, who is the Global Senior Vice President of Responsible Business and Safety and Security at the Radisson Hotel Group, and finally by Madhu Rajesh, the founding Chief Executive of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. Okay, so before we dive in proper and hear from today's brilliant speakers, let me just share a few quick perspectives from my side, just to really set the scene on what I'm seeing out there at the moment. Essentially, I just want to kind of talk to why this conversation matters now. Because clearly this is a highly resilient industry, one that's been through many crises in the past, and sadly, COVID-19 is very unlikely to be the last. But in terms of the sustainability or the green agenda, this crisis does feel different, and certainly very different to 2008-9, when in the financial crash, the sustainability agenda very much dropped off the agenda for quite a while in many cases. Because what's interesting is that even in this period of extreme operational and commercial stress, it feels like there is still a widespread recommitment going on to climate, net zero, nature, sustainability in the round. Just to give you one example, one survey among business respondents showed that 58% of businesses are actually increasing their commitment to sustainability as a direct consequence of the pandemic, with most other businesses in that survey at least maintaining their existing positions. And it does feel like these subjects are now very much firmly embedded as a matter of board level strategy. And by the way, I'm seeing this with businesses I'm working with in the hospitality industry, but also in many other sectors, including retail, renewables, manufacturing, and elsewhere. I'll just give you 3 quick reasons why I think this may be so. Firstly, quite simply, I think the world has had a wake-up call. I think people have realised that business models have been exposed like never before as being highly vulnerable to external systemic risks. So I think maybe we're all learning to be a little bit more humble with regard to nature and the fundamentals of science. Secondly, public sentiment has shifted a huge extent since the previous crisis in 2008-9. And over that past decade, we've seen regulators begin to move quite radically. We've seen investor sentiment really shifting, customers now demanding different things. Just one example on that, a recent Publicis report from this summer shows that 58%, again 58% bizarrely, 58% of consumers are thinking more about the environment since COVID-19 than before. And I think we'd all kind of recognize the ways in which that's true in our own lives. And thirdly and finally, there are so many great solutions available out there now. And I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about a lot of those from colleagues on the panel through this session. So in many respects, the extent to which people are going to trust your brand in the future, for my money, starts to depend now on the extent to which you are willing to start deploying these solutions and to demonstrate that your brand will look after both people and planet with appropriate respect and care. That's my my kind of initial thoughts on this subject, and I'd now like to hand over to the panel. And I'm going to start by inviting Virginia Fernandez-Trapa from the UN World Tourism Organization to tell us a little bit about the One Planet vision for responsible recovery. Virginia.
Thank you, Stephen. Can you confirm that you hear me and see my screen?
Yep.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Madrid. Thanks very much to the organizers for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and thank you for your interest. I'm a program officer at the UNWTO, notably at the Sustainable Development of Tourism Department. And I also work as a coordinator of the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program. Today, I will be presenting the vision that we released back in June on the occasion of World Environment Day. This is the One Planet vision for a responsible recovery from COVID. The vision calls for a recovery which is founded on sustainability to underpin the resilience of the tourism sector. It basically calls for the transformation of the sector to better balance the needs of people, planet, and prosperity. It reflects the collective views of the members of the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program, which is an implementation mechanism for SDG 12. Before the pandemic, we were already trying to integrate sustainability in tourism, many destinations and businesses having taken salient efforts. Yet a lot of work was still to be done, as many destinations were also facing challenges like related to current capacity or the overconsumption of resources or impacts on climate. There were also challenges in the implementation of policies. For example, while all of them were making references to sustainability and 95% were making reference to the importance of measuring the impacts of tourism, only half of them were, let's say, providing a more detailed view on sustainability, going beyond the objectives and explaining how important it is also to measure environmental impacts or social impacts. In addition, there were very few public reports communicating the progress in implementation of policies. During COVID, well, you all know we're facing the biggest crisis in the history of tourism, and the financial losses registered so far are around 5 times larger than those recorded back in 2009 with the financial crisis. They come coupled with an unprecedented number of jobs at risk. In the month of June, we saw an unprecedented application of border closures, with 75% of destinations having their borders completely closed. That has slightly improved today, because many destinations have chosen to shift to less severe travel restrictions, but still 93 destinations continue to have their borders closed. This, of course, makes it very difficult to foresee when tourism will fully resume. UNWTO scenarios point at timeframes between late 2021 and 2023, but this, of course, will depend on the context and dependence on international markets for each destination. So meanwhile, the uncertainty, the vision aims to support the development and implementation of recovery plans that contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals and to the Paris Agreement. We would like to use the vision to build resilience, the resilience that the sector needs, and to accelerate the pre-existing actions on sustainability. So the vision is structured in three pillars: people, planet, and prosperity. And each pillar includes two blocks. For example, with regards to public health, the pandemic has made very clear the linkages between public health and tourism. And the vision encourages stakeholders to integrate public health into their thinking so as to be better prepared for future crises. We have seen some tourism observatories, for instance, the one in Yukon, Canada, or South Tyrol in Italy, that are already integrating epidemiological indicators in their regular monitoring activities. At the same time, more and more stakeholders are trying to look at protocols, not only from the point of view of safety, but with sustainability in mind, so as to avoid unnecessary impacts on the environment, which could in turn have negative impacts on health. Useful resources for this are the operating recommendations for accommodation businesses from the World Health Organization, which were recently updated in the month of August, and the recommendations to continue taking action on plastic pollution during COVID, which were released by UNWTO, UNEP, and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. On social inclusion, despite the challenges, we have seen all kinds of support from tourism stakeholders, businesses, to communities, ranging from the creation of a food security program for the local community by Grootbos Lodge Foundation in South Africa, to a hotel in Belgium providing beds for the homeless, a myriad of them. The vision basically calls for capitalizing on those efforts to create stronger ties with local communities and enhance the local satisfaction with tourism when we restart. The pandemic has also raised awareness on the importance of biodiversity conservation as a natural barrier to future pandemics. In many destinations, as you know, conservation efforts depend on tourism revenue, but these efforts are not well captured or recognized. In many occasions, these efforts have actually continued during the pandemic, even though there were no tourists. Such is the case of Kotar's Lodge in Kenya, which continues to employ the rangers that protect the wildlife in its conservancy beside the Masai Mara, or they have even been enhanced. For example, Iberostar, a Spanish hotel group which operates in over 100 countries, has strengthened investments in coral reef restoration in Jamaica, and they are collaborating with scientific groups. When it comes to climate, the need for scaling up action is remarkable. As of December 2019, the emissions of our sector were set to increase by at least 25% by 2030, making it very difficult to stay aligned with international goals. Therefore, the measurement of emissions needs to become common practice across the industry. A few weeks ago, we read with great interest how Intrepid Travel has become the first tour operator to introduce science-based targets. We've seen that the city of Valencia in Spain has also recently footprinted its tourism operations. The vision calls for the necessary investments in this area to take place, and at the same time for the sector to engage in adaptation and carbon removal to be able to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. On this front, we recently learned about the destination of Machu Picchu in Peru, having committed to become carbon neutral by 2050. For the last block, prosperity, we have circular economy, which was a strategy already being looked at before the pandemic, notably from the angle of emissions reduction and enhancing the resource efficiency of our operations. But which I guess now it's being approached from a broader scope, as it can also contribute to the diversification needed in many destinations, and to creating green jobs, therefore placing tourism in a resilient growth pathway. As far as we know, Portugal is the first country to have integrated references of circularity in their national tourism strategy. When it comes to plastics, which is an area that we are prioritizing as a catalyzer of circularity in tourism, we recently launched together with UNEP and in collaboration with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. And next year we expect to launch also another global initiative on food waste. Accommodation businesses can, of course, become signatories of these initiatives. And then the last line of action recommended is good governance and finance. Obviously, this will be necessary to implement all the actions that I have been mentioning, which, besides driving the sustainability of tourism, can also represent competitive advantages, as the demand for sustainable tourism products is growing, and most importantly, contribute to enhance the resilience of tourism. We're going to launch a repository of initiatives which are connected to the elements of the vision in the month of December. Our objective is to collectively transform the vision into action and to provide guidance and inspiration to all those interested in integrating the various recommendations into their operations. So I'd like to extend an invitation for all of you to follow us on Twitter to stay alert, and also to share your news initiatives that we could connect with the vision. And of course, I remain at your disposition to exchange on any of the points. Thank you very much.
Virginia, thank you very much. Fascinating stuff, and I look forward to, certainly we'll be following One Planet Tourism, and look forward to hearing more about that. Okay, we're going to go straight now to Thomas Laughlin at Booking.com to hear some perspectives from the consumer point of view. Thomas.
Awesome. Just to confirm, you can see my screen and hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, perfect, cool. Yeah, I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for presenting on this call, and it's great to see that we're at this point, and it's actually really exciting for a lot of work that's led up to this point, so it's really cool for me to see this. So at Booking.com, we make it easier for everyone to experience the world. We believe we have a shared responsibility along with our industry to make sure that there's a world worth experiencing. We know that there's opportunity. In fact, 86% of travelers want to travel more sustainably, but only half often or always manage to do so. So there's a gap. On the partner side, 82% of partners want to work with us on this topic. However, we know that there are frictions. From the customer side, there's a lack of understanding on how to make sustainable choices, a lack of transparency on which properties are sustainable, and a higher cost perception. From the partner side, there's a lack of understanding of impact, a lack of incentives, and a lack of knowledge and tools. We also know that some partners who have enabled some sustainable practices prefer to keep them quiet because there's a lack of confidence on how to craft the message to the guest, a fear that the guest will think that their stay is negatively impacted, or a fear of sounding preachy or patronizing. We know from research that coronavirus amped people's awareness about their impact on the environment and local community. 69% of travelers expect the travel industry to offer more sustainable options. 55% of travelers want to see how their money is going back into the local community. And 53% of travelers want to reduce their waste and recycle their plastic. We also see that due to COVID-19, some partners moved away from more sustainable practices as part of their health and safety measures. To support our partners on this topic, we worked with the UNEP in an advisory capacity where they produced a COVID recovery handbook on the topic of plastics pollution, which we surfaced to our partners in the Partner Hub. So we understand our philosophy, we see there's opportunity, we've identified some of the frictions. How then do we make it easier for guests to book more sustainable options? First of all, we identify and collect what our partners are currently doing. We then expose this information to the guest in the booking process to create awareness, and then we use the awareness to leverage against the collection to move the momentum forward. When we look at our collection program or our model, we see that it's broken up into 2 tiers. The first tier is a model that we've created with experts and have validated by peers, where the partner can tick off a list of binary yes/no questions that have actions or impacts on one of the 5 categories above. So we have energy, greenhouse gases, water, waste, biodiversity, ecosystems, and destination and community. An example of an attribute might be to remove single-use plastic toiletries. This would fall under waste. We also see in the second tier that certifications and sustainability programs already exist. So we want to collect the information from tier 1 and tier 2, and then surface that information to the guests in the booking process to increase sustainable supply and demand. We know our road is long. We've broken it up into 3 phases. The first phase, the one we're in right now, is about collecting the information, creating the baseline. So what is everybody doing? And what can we learn, both from the partner's perspective and the customer's perspective, that we can use in our second phase? In the depth phase, we take the learnings and apply it to our model so that we can give our partners real impactful actions that will drive changes in their operation. In the final phase, we have universal adoption. We want to end with a product that can be universally adopted by the industry. What do our partners plot in their sustainability journeys right now? So if we look at our partner population, and at the bottom left-hand corner, you have 0 or very little sustainable efforts made, out to the right-hand side where you have a more mature sustainable product, we see that the majority of our partners plot closer towards the left-hand side, meaning that we have a lot of work to show the impact. We need to incentivize and produce tools and support that help this curve move over so we start getting partners on a journey where they feel confident about sustainability. What does this look like for our partners and our customer at this moment? So to start, we have a sustainability landing page in our extranet where the partner can engage with different topics that relate to sustainability. They can find out the what and the why. Once they've enabled these different actions, they can go to the facilities list in the extranet and tick off yes or no to the binary questions. This is the first version of the list. We have a second version that's due to be launched by the end of the year, which will just add more items to this list that we can work on together. And we'll also collect certifications and chain programs as well and display those to the guests. To support the partner, we've released this week a user guide for our partners that breaks down the different topics of sustainability to start creating confidence on the topic so we can start moving partners on their sustainable journey. The second webinar in this series, The Benefits of Sustainable Hotel Design, is on the 25th of November at 8 a.m. And for the guests in the booking process, you'll see here we have 4 different versions. The first version is the desktop version, and then you have iOS, Android, and then mobile web version. This is what the guest sees when they are in the booking process of their accommodation. We know that we're in very early stages of this product, and there's many iterations to come, but we're very excited to see what opportunities lie ahead for us, and we're really excited to work with our partners on this topic as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thomas, very much.
Of course.
Brilliant to hear that. Let's go straight now to Singapore to hear from Eric Rigourte. So Eric is with Greenview, and he's going to talk to us about developments in sustainability in the global context. Eric.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Time for a new accent. Can you hear me, and see my presentation okay?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. It's a pleasure to present to you some of the perspective that we have had in this difficult year, which also is a sort of a bright one looking forward. So just to start, Greenview, what do? We are a sustainability consultancy for hotel companies, the hotel industry. We work with a few dozen companies to help with strategy programs, data management, benchmarking, and industry initiatives. We do a lot of data work, which I'll present a little bit of. And we were the first, we have a software, the Greenview portal, which helps hotels manage their sustainability data, performance, get guidance, share best practices. And that was the first to align with the Global Sustainable Tourism criteria as a system, which is one of the main directions we see the industry going, as well as GSTC coming on the scene as a predominant framework body and certification. So what we're going to talk about today is some of the trends that we're seeing in general at corporate levels and that drive down to the property level. First, of course, climate change needs to get coronavirus publicist. I mean, that's basically what we've seen, is that if we put as much effort and attention on climate change as we did on COVID, because the impending issues and challenges on a longer scale are actually much greater. So there is, on one hand, a backseat as mentioned, but there is a realization that climate change is something that is going to affect and be needed and is not going away. But of course, as we mentioned, the hygiene and cleanliness requirements impact sustainability. So yes, as we just heard, there is a little bit of a hold on some of the single-use plastic initiatives that were going on, but the conversation itself of hygiene and sustainability is front and center everywhere now. It's not just hygiene, it's not just COVID, it's hygiene and sustainability. So think about that. 10 years ago, that probably wouldn't have been the case. It would have been a conversation on hygiene, but it's hygiene and sustainability, and that's the big topic we're seeing, is the leakage discussions. Second, as mentioned, the consumer awareness. And so, as Thomas mentioned, this is very, very high on the minds of consumers, but it's not just the guest, it's the business traveler, and it's the distribution that is now aware of it as well and doing their part. And so we're seeing much more heightened awareness on sustainability from part of the consumers, and they're starting to ask and request more information more tangibly. Third, the social impact, racial inequality, social impact, positive community interaction. That is what is now being seen not only on society, but this is at board levels of companies. This is on the minds of business travel buyers, and it's going to percolate down, and it's going to be something that most hotels will need to address in some form, which is addressing social impact in the context of diversity, inclusion, and others. Now, that's always sort of been there, but it's really coming to the forefront more so now than ever. It's also not going to go away. Fourth, there is growing interest among investors. Pre-COVID and then even during, we're seeing so much push from those who are investing in hotel real estate, investing in hotel companies, saying we want to look at your business through a lens of sustainability, which is a lot of times about risk and impacts. What are the potential climate risks? What are the opportunities for physical risks, for regulatory risks, and for market risks and opportunities? What do customers want, and how does that affect your business? So that's requiring a lot more scrutiny if you want to go out and find investment partners, even lenders, in this time. With that, the fifth trend is that sustainability, there is the green recovery aspect going on all over the world now. And the idea that if there is lending, loans, relief, or new opportunities and policies built around recovery, they're tied to environmental and social initiatives or criteria. We just finished a project with the International Finance Corporation, IFC, for 7 countries to do a diagnostic and assess what type of green requirements could be embedded in financial institution lending credit facilities for hotels that were affected with COVID. And that's just one instance, but there are plenty more of those right now. So the need, we know it's a tough situation. Hotels need to modernize, need access to capital, and at the same time are strapped for it because of the situation we're in. And so cognizant of that, now is the opportunity to look a little bit longer term and say, how can I make my business more resilient as things like energy and water costs are going to increase, and asset value is under increased scrutiny for the sustainability lens. Now, the other thing that we've seen a lot of from our clients and from around is that there was a little bit of downtime. And so honestly, the travel industry was busy crushing it in the last 10 years. But now is we've seen a lot of people saying, yes, you know what, now that I actually want to get into some ways we can approach sustainability. Now it's time to think about our platform, our software, our data. And before, there was just too much going on. So now we actually have seen a lot of that. And so that's come on the side of the asset manager, of the operator, of the owner at a property level and at a company level. So this is a very good sign that we're seeing that once business does rebound, because we know that's the most important, it will come with the plans and preparations to embed sustainability in the discussion. Now I'll get into a little bit of the best practices, make it tangible, but first, I want to just caveat this, that historically, we always tended to look at the hotel as, okay, what are the things we should be doing? What are the best practices? What are the specifications? What's the liters per flush of the toilet? What is the gallons, liters per minute of the shower head, the specifications of the lighting? So all of that tended to be very specific, but the most important change and evolution we're seeing now is not thinking about those technical, but the process of a hotel. And so thinking about hotel during the life cycle, if you're an owner or an operator or both, is to embed sustainability and think about it in the life cycle of your hotel. So if you are looking to build hotels or acquire hotels, the due diligence in the very beginning stages and interacting with partners is really important. Screening and understanding those impacts, those risks, looking for opportunities, benchmarking, seeing what kind of performance should be there. And then if you're doing any capital budgeting and planning for your hotel, then that's the time also to look at, okay, time for an improvement plan. How do you embed sustainability in there? Oftentimes, we've seen that that's actually been left because there were different people involved in the capital budgeting than the sustainability operations. So the ongoing monitoring as well, to make sure that you're always monitoring sustainability just in an ongoing sense, which is fairly common. But again, in doing renovations, that's the biggest opportunity, is when renovations and retrofits happen that are not necessarily with sustainability as the primary focus, to embed that in all of those aspects. And then finally, in a disposition, exit, or other end of life stage or repurposing, refurbishment, look at sustainability as well, because it affects the asset value and affects the way that you will then carry on the investment afterward or the operation. So just thinking about that is the process of embedding sustainability in the discussion at every stage of the life cycle and the operation of the hotel is the biggest practice and trend we're actually seeing right now. Now, one of the things we start to do when we monitor is we see that there's actually this massive gap in performance. We manage the Cornell Hotel Sustainability Benchmarking Index. We just released it. It has 14,000 hotels worth of data across the world, benchmarking freely available energy, water, and carbon emissions, and available for participation at a very economic price. Thank you to our participants who have made it possible. What we found over and over again in this report and this data is that there is an immense gap among performance in the range at any market, among any similar segment. So you can see, for example, in this, Melbourne, full service hotels in Melbourne have a 2-to-1 ratio of if there's 20 hotels, hotel number 5 is twice as efficient as hotel number 15. And this is a phenomenon. And so you can actually empirically show how, yes, there is a lot of opportunity. And this is true for energy, and it's also true for water, sometimes even more greater. Now, finally, 3 things and then some final suggestions. Single-use plastic. Now, we know this is the big issue before and after, relating it to the impacts and why single-use plastic is important. All these practices are from also the Green Lodging Trends report that we put out, an industry log of best practices biannually to be able to sort of show what's going on. Engaging vendors, I want to mention here, engaging vendors, communicating to guests, and focusing on what you can do now. Yes, hygiene makes you take a back seat, but there are things you can do now. Food waste. Food waste is important for pretty much every single main topic and pillar that Virginia mentioned earlier, because it fits in where food comes from, where it goes, and the environmental and social impacts of that. So look at where you're ordering it from. Can you reduce from your suppliers? Can you look at your plating? Can you look at your serving sizes? Can you work with your guests to actually reduce, because they're conscious and they're aware now? Can you share good practice among peers? And then what can you do to actually divert it from landfill? So food waste, big practice and very important. Community engagement. COVID has created this special relationship of the hotel with the community, as many of you know very well. That's going to continue. And so understanding the role hotels can play, having a more authentic interaction with the guest and the community, seeing where you can actually take it in terms of setting objectives. Where can you lend a hand? Because you've probably been lending a hand, but how can that continue? How can you support local businesses and business models? And then how can you tie that support to the various impacts, such as the Sustainable Development Goals? So that's going to be front and center. There's more guest engagement, more content there. And we really look forward to that realization about the role the hotel plays, because the hotel stays there in a pandemic. Finally, get it done. Process, establish a team, monitor benchmark performance, document and share. And the most important thing is, what was a green hotel in 2010? If you were a 9 in 2010, you're a 3 in 2020, and where are you going to be in 2025? There are a number of initiatives out there, and the bar is going to be moving forward, especially with the great group here today. And so think about it as a process and continually improve for the future of the planet and the people. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to Steve.
Great stuff, Eric. Thank you very much for that. I love the idea of a 10 10 years ago being a laggard now, and continual improvement, absolutely. Okay, so just a quick reminder to the audience to say, please do put your questions into the Q&A, which is the button on the right-hand side of your screen. Type in your questions there and we'll come to those at the end of this session. I'd like to move now across to Brussels to speak to Inga Huberichs with Radisson Hotel Group to get that practical perspective from the hotel perspective. So Inga.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. You can see the sun is out in Brussels. So really a pleasure to be here and be sharing some of our practices for safe and sustainable travel with Radisson Hotel Group. So just a quick word, we are close to 1,200 hotels in operation across 120 countries around the world, and we have about 100,000 direct and indirect team members. With that, we're just outside the top 10 of largest hotel groups in the world with our 9 brands. And we even launched a new brand now this year during the COVID time. So what I would like to share, of course, I want to first share some of the beautiful images of our hotels in Australasia as we are focusing on this region with this webinar. So these hotels are ready to welcome you back when you can travel to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, etc. I think it is important, though, to say that at this time, we are talking about sustainability and COVID, but at this time, really, the health and safety of our travelers and our employees really come first. So when there was a period in the beginning of the year when we started closing hotels, but when we reopened them, we said we have to really install a clear protocol, which is called the Radisson Hotel Safety Protocol, which we have validated by an international leader in inspection and validation called SGS. So wherever you go in the Radisson hotels, you will find a 20-step COVID prevention protocol with a specific 10 steps for meeting and events. And all of our hotels have rolled this out, and all of our hotels have been validated by SGS that they are actually doing this correctly. Now, of course, there's still a lot of sustainability that we can stay committed to. In the middle of this year, we have reinforced our 5-year plan going up to 2025. And that was a strong signal from our leadership that we actually are maintaining our commitment to sustainability and building on our successes from before. We do recognize that some of the actions are on hold for a while until we come out on the other end of this pandemic, but we maintain our commitment. For example, we have agreed on a 30% carbon reduction target in the next 5 years. This is actually also based on an interesting study that the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance and Greenview have done together to say how much hotels have to reduce their carbon footprint to be in line with the COP21 climate summit targets of Paris. We are en route, this puts us en route to carbon neutrality in 2050. And we will be issuing, there was talk about the the science-based targets, sorry. We are going to issue our science-based targets in 2021. Now, for all of you listening, there are actually very interesting tools which have been issued by the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance to measure your carbon footprint and your water footprint in a consistent manner. They are called the Hotel Carbon Measurement Initiative and the Hotel Water Measurement Initiative. So if you want to know what the carbon and water footprint of your hotel is, you can simply use these free tools, which we are using as well, by the way, to measure our carbon and water footprints. We also offer and continue to offer 100% carbon neutral meetings around the world, which means that we offset the carbon footprint of all our meeting and events automatically and free to the client with verified carbon offset projects that actually align with the SDGs in terms of social impact. Just before COVID arrived in Europe, I would say, at the end of February, we issued our single-use plastic phase-out commitment. So we issued a commitment for the group worldwide to phase out single-use plastics by 2022. Now, I do expect that this will have a year of delay because of the current COVID prevention measures and that require certain wrapping, certain plastic wrappings to be put in place that require a certain return to single-use amenities, etc., for health and safety reasons. Now, on the social side, we have a global cooperation with SOS Children's Villages. They are actually the largest non-profit, international non-profit, taking care of children in alternative care, and all our hotels are asked to sponsor at least one child with SOS Children's Villages, and so these children can grow up safely in these villages of alternative care. So our commitment to sustainability is still standing strong. I just want to give you some examples of some of the hotels in the Australasia region. For example, the Radisson Blue Plaza in Sydney, who always have been an environmental leader since they opened. The hotel runs 100% on renewable energy. Actually, that is an easy thing that hotels can do, move partially or fully to the purchase of renewable energy. Energy prices are expected to go down in the immediate future, so you can also, and then combined with the fact that renewable energy today is not very much more expensive or not more expensive at all than conventional energy, we would really recommend that hotels move to renewable energy for their supply. They also have worked very much on their waste management process, and they have a mechanism in place, an installation in place to liquefy their organic waste. As you can see, it's a city hotel. So even in a city hotel where composting, for example, is not possible, this hotel has put this tool in place to liquefy organic waste. So actually, it stays in there and the only byproduct is water. They also have all the settings in place, as was referred to earlier, in terms of water conserving tabs, showers, and toilets. They don't use any plastic water bottles. They have filtration stations across the hotel, both for the guest rooms and the M&E. So they continue to use that. And on the social side, after the bushfires of 2019 and beginning of 2020, they adopted 10 koalas. Of course, these they are the fluffy mascots of the hotel. And they're also very engaged, and even during the COVID times, they continue to be engaged with blood donations. And they also communicate and calculate about how many lives these blood donations have saved. So this is just one example of environmental and social engagement. Another example is a Radisson on Flagstaff Gardens in Melbourne, also a hotel that is very active on the social side. They also have all the environmental basics in place, but on top of that, they support SOS Children's Villages in Indonesia with the support of an SOS child. They also support very actively their local organizations. As you can see, You Matter, a Rotary House, Kashi projects, and they have also started to make masks in-house, which they give away to their own employees, to the guests as required, and to the community. So even during COVID, even with reduced teams, this hotel also remained active. I would say that these are just two examples of what we are seeing around the world, and it's true that even in a COVID time, you can still maintain your basics of sustainability, but you can also engage with your local community in different ways. And that is what we have been seeing across Radisson hotels globally. We have seen hotels hosting frontline workers in the US, in India, in Russia, in China, hotels hosting quarantined people. At the height of the pandemic, at least 150 hotels were housing quarantined people, and in some cases, even mildly infected people. It was very important for a lot of these people who were quarantined, who were, for example, coming into the country, being in a foreign location, or returning home, that they could have a comfortable and a safe place to stay during their quarantine time. And we had loads of very positive reactions on that. We also have been donating literally hundreds of thousands of meals. I think you all remember, for example, in India, the times when workers were returning to their home states, often being confronted with very dire conditions on their route to their home states. We have donated hundreds of thousands of meals to people who were on the road, but also to frontline workers in various locations around the world. Another thing that we have been doing is donating masks and personal protective equipment, because certainly in the beginning, when we were all in this first wave around, let's say, March to June, a lot of the locations had a shortage of masks and personal protective equipment for frontline workers even sometimes, or for people in need. And a lot of our hotels who did, thanks to the strength of our procurement organization, get hold of masks and personal protective equipment, were actually giving a portion of that away to firefighters or to frontline workers. So that is something that also has happened during the COVID pandemic. And then a final one, which I like very much, is the Linen for Life project, which is actually a project we do in cooperation with Diversity Chemicals, who are our provider of ecological chemicals. And what they have set up in partnership with us and with other hotels actually is that they use the discarded linen, so bed sheets that are still high quality but cannot be used anymore in the hotel. They are actually turned into face masks, as you can see here on this photo from the Philippines. They are actually turned into face masks for local communities by local NGOs. So it's a three-way partnership with local NGOs who then turn these masks into face masks and give them away to the local community. And then in Asia, and Asia Pacific is actually the region which is performing quite well at this time in terms of reopening hotel and having travelers, whether it's domestic or international travel in the travel corridors is happening. So in China, where the recovery was the fastest, we set up a program where guests can adopt a Lumi, and Lumi is our mascot of our sustainability program. They can adopt a Lumi, they can buy a little Lumi toy, and the proceeds of that sale go to the IU Foundation, which is actually a foundation that supports young doctors. So that's also a very pertinent way of supporting the local community in this time of COVID. I'd like to close it off with a little clip about what our hotels and team members have been doing around, and hope we can hear some interesting questions from the audience. Thank you. Can you play the video?
When it seemed like the world had been turned upside down, the first thing we asked ourselves was, how can we help? But even before we had time to answer, our team members from all over the world were one step ahead and had begun to take action. Danuta has been sewing face masks for local hospitals. Paola has been baking hundreds of granola bars for healthcare staff and frontline workers. Our chefs have been up day and night serving thousands of meals in vulnerable communities. Team members donated hand sanitizers, blankets, and bed linen to local hospitals, helping keep workers safe and protected. Our hotels around the world are hosting doctors and nurses who do so much for us. In the end, taking care of those around us is what hospitality is all about. And we know we're not the only ones. So to all of our team members and each and every one of you around the world, thank you for making a difference. Always, every day, everywhere, every time. Radisson thanks you.
Thank you very much, Inga. Okay, fascinating to see that. We're now into our last presentation, so I'm going to hand it straight over to Madhu Rajesh of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance.
Thank you, Steve. I will keep it quick. I just wanted to check if you can see my screen.
I can, yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here today, and it's been really interesting to listen to some of the other participants in the panel talk about sustainability. As a last speaker, I'll keep it short. I think it's been a great session listening to sustainability trends globally and what they mean for our industry. Sustainable Hospitality Alliance is an organization which is here to help the industry move forward on its sustainability agenda. And sorry, I've just had a message to say my slides are not visible. Is that correct? Can everyone see my
Madhu, but not your slide.
Okay, I will share my screen again. If not, could the booking team move to backup slides if my screen's not visible for some reason? You should be able to see them now?
Yep.
Great, thank you. So we bring together some of the world's leading hotel companies that are committed to sustainability as part of our membership. And currently we've got 14 members that cover about 25% of the industry in terms of hotel rooms inventory. These are brands that are of different sizes and of different geographic focus. And what that gives us is a unique insight into what the industry's issues are. Some challenges that small brands face or large brands face, but also equally solutions and some innovations coming from some of our smaller members and the more nimble brands. And using those insights for the industry, we develop solutions that can be then made available to the broader industry that is just getting started on the sustainability journey or at different phases at times. Our work is focused on 4 key areas that were identified as the most material for the industry in consultation with the membership. And these are very much around people and planet, the human rights and youth employment, as well as climate action and water stewardship. So without going into more detail on each areas of work, I just want to say for any hotel that's just getting started on the sustainability journey, even a panel like this, there's so many recommendations that have come your way and so many examples of things that hotels are doing, it can be quite daunting. And we are here to simplify and support you as you get started on the journey. Some of the tools, some of the participants on the panel have mentioned today, and I just want to take a moment to share some of these with you. So we have tools that help hotels get started by measuring their water and energy footprints. And these tools are well regarded by the industry, used by 20 to 25,000 hotels across the world, and are available absolutely for free on our website with very user-friendly webinars and know-how guides. So I wanted to point you in that direction, and I know that Booking.com will be rolling out some of these tools to their partners, but any hotel anywhere in the world can go on our website and use them and contact them if you have any issues using them as well. Sustainability is often seen as something which is expensive and which is morally the right thing to do. But we wanted to challenge that myth across the industry and say, actually, there's a business case for it. There's an economic imperative for hotels to think about it, whether they are looking at building new hotels or at a stage where they're considering retrofits, because it brings in operational efficiency. So in collaboration with World Bank and the International Finance Corporation, we produced a business case earlier this year, which again lists myths and has some key do's and don'ts for you as hotels getting started on your journey. It's available to download from our website. And again, I would encourage you to download that and read that. Some of the panelists have referred to some of the reports that we published around water risk, around water stewardship if you're getting started, and also how do you really think about reducing your energy footprint. And again, all these reports are available on our website for free to download. So please do download those and refer to those. On modern slavery, which is a big risk in our labor supply chains, we have a free training which is available on our website. It's a 20-minute interactive training. It really helps hotels identify risks of modern slavery in their labor supply chain. So I just wanted to say, our mission and our vision is to create, an industry that is focused on responsibility in the way it operates, and we are here to provide you and support you with those tools and resources. And we will be working in collaboration with Booking.com to promote these tools across Booking's membership, but would really encourage you to engage with us and make use of some of these. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhu. Wealth of resources from the Alliance there. Okay, we're pretty much out of time, but let's just take a quick look at some of the questions. Again, if in the dying minutes, if any of our audience have got questions they want to put into the Q&A on the right-hand side, please do so. We've got one here immediately I want to pick up on, which is just a question around how do we forgive me, I'm just trying to get the screen right. How do we combine hygiene and sustainability? How do those two things coexist, and what are the tensions there? Maybe that's one for, I guess, Inga, and perhaps Eric might have a view as well on that.
Yes, it's an excellent question, and it's one we are all grappling with during this year. But I would say, you know, on the waste side, of course, we have an increase of waste of personal protective equipment, face masks, gloves, cleaning wipes, things like that. You see them also, sadly, in the streets if you go outside. So I think it's important for all those new waste streams that we continue to apply waste sorting and recycling if possible. So I think that is something we've stressed to our hotels, that with these new waste streams is something that they need to look at. On the other hand, as I said in my presentation, I think the fundamentals of sustainability can remain, which is measure your sustainability, know where you stand in terms of carbon, water, and other targets that you're setting for yourself. And even in these times, you can actually continue to practice the right reflexes to bring your resource consumption down. Another thing which is essential and which we can keep going is how we contribute to the community, and also how we will recover the many jobs that are lost in a responsible way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Inga. I don't think we have any other questions. Let me just check. Eric, is there anything you wanted to add to that question around hygiene and sustainability, Eric? Very briefly.
Yes, quickly, just to reiterate what Inga said, exactly, is there's so much you can do now. You can put the process in place, you can think about it. And if we look at what the hygiene issue of plastic and of maybe some operational procedures, that's a tough one right now. But look at the 4 pillars that Madhu presented. Human rights, youth, carbon, and water. You can address all of those right now. And so there's plenty of frameworks, plenty of resources, and look at all the practices that we have available, data we have available, the booking.com data on their platform. There's so much out there that you can do right now. So it should be about what you can do, and then what you maybe table for a later date. Wow.
Great. All right. Well, look, I'm sure there's loads more conversation to be had on this. I don't think there are any other live questions, but maybe our audience will have more kind of reflections after the event. We're right on the hour, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Just a couple of final pieces to say. Please do keep an eye out for an email from booking.com with tools and resources related to today's sessions. Please do also look at the website of the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. As Madhu was saying, there's loads of free sustainability tools and resources available for you there. So thank you to all of you for joining today, wherever you are in the world. Thank you to my colleagues and panelists, for everyone for taking part in today's session, and I wish you a good and productive rest of your day. Thank you.